How are you?
Sweet. Good. Hang on.
That should allow you, mate, to show us your
Here we are.
face. Very
Here we
good.
go.
All right,
Hello.
guys,
Good.
we're broadcasting.
Fantastic.
Okay, we're about there. It's just on 11 o'clock, so probably the perfect time to get started. And I'll get my co-hosts to turn on their videos so that when I introduce them, you get to see what they look like. But firstly, thanks for joining us. Really excited to be bringing you another webinar from PI together with the guys at Link. Terrific to have so many of you online this morning as well. With end of financial year fast approaching here down under, this seemed the ideal time to be running today's webinar on re-engaging clients with fixed fee pricing and why now is the perfect time to change. So look, hopefully many of you are already engaging your clients formally and hopefully many of you are considering re-engaging them as we get closer to end of financial year as well. On the topic of fixed fee pricing, I have to admit, when I was preparing this morning and reading through the slides, reminded me of a time, and I'll show my age here, which isn't already obvious by the amount of grey hair on my head, but I was running around the country back 20 years ago doing a roadshow with a couple of doyens in our industry. You may have heard the names Paul Dunn and Ron Baker, and we were very much spruiking a book that they wrote back 20 years ago called The Firm of the Future. That book very much was about traditional hourly billing for time versus pricing for value, or effectively charging a fixed fee for your service. And there was always a feeling back 20 years ago or so that they were a little bit ahead of their time. It's interesting, you roll the clock forward 20 years and with the shockwaves and the uncertainty that a little old pandemic was able to send through our industry just last year, being valued for your services and having more certainty and importantly being paid on time is more relevant today than ever before. So hopefully you'll find this morning's webinar very relevant. Let me change the screen and keep going. My name's David New. For those of you that I haven't met before, Head of APAC at Practice Ignition. I've been in that role now for over a year or so. I may have met some of you in my years at Xero, Receipt Bank and Spotlight Reporting prior to that. So I've certainly spent some fun time in the cloud ecosystem and really enjoyed it. I'm joined this morning by Will McTavish, co-founder of Link, Link Solutions, Link Reporting. There's a whole bunch of arms to the Link business, a business that's very much designed around the premise of helping you see what's truly happening in your business. He's a Kiwi. Hopefully you'll understand his accent without too much difficulty. Also joined by our very own Rebecca Michalik, our head of accounting at Practice Ignition, and she is also director of Business Depot when we're not grabbing the rest of her time. I should have changed the slide. That's what they look like. You'll get to meet them in a moment. Trying to manage two screens here, it's always challenging. Here's a quote from one of Link's customers, and they've had some real nice things to say about them. Don't know if those of you online know Manoli, been around for a while. He's used the services of Link before, and he says, Link Reporting, it's changed our business. We now know our numbers, can share them with the team monthly. If you're a modern accounting firm using XPM, that's Xero Practice Manager, then get on Link to measure your KPIs, and you'll hear more from Will shortly. As far as our agenda goes this morning, we've got a pretty full one for you, and we're going to try to keep this to 45 minutes because we know that you're all busy people, but we'll be talking to you about why 2021 is the year to move to fixed fees if you haven't already, how to make that move, because I know change is difficult and there's always a change management process, understanding your client service matrix and determining pricing, which is always a question we get asked. All very well to say move to fixed fees, but how do we determine what that fixed fee will be? How you can then increase revenue through bundle services is something that will pick up after Beck. And then I'll come back and show you just a little bit on Practice Ignition so you get a feel for what we do and how we can help you with a move to fixed fee pricing, and how we can help you hopefully around end of financial year time with your engagements and re-engagements. So look, before we go any further, unless I stuff this up terribly, I'm going to attempt to launch a poll and ask you for just, here we go, launch poll. How often do you re-engage your clients? And if I could ask you all to pick one of those rather than not pick any, that would be really helpful. We've got quite a few of you on. Do you engage them multiple times a year? At least once a year? Once every few years? Or hardly ever? Not since the first time we engaged, which I'm hoping not too many of you select, but there's a few of you. It looks like once a year is the popular choice. I'll let it go a little bit longer. About 70% of you have replied. If the other 30% could just pick one, that'd be really helpful. 5, 4, 3, some of you are shy. Okay, no worries, we'll leave it at that. But the resounding popular choice there was at least once per year, which doesn't surprise. I think that's typically what we have seen. All right, look, on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Rebecca Michalek. I'm sure a lot of you know her. She's all over social these days. She's not wearing the pink jacket, though, that you may have seen her in. She's in a black one today, so I'll throw you over to Beck, and she'll talk about why now is the time to change the way you engage. Over to you, Beck.
Thanks so much, Dave. And yes, I am far more than just the pink jacket. There's some substance underneath here as well. And I have black jackets. If I could get you just change that screen for me. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is, as Dave mentioned, fixed fee is not a new conversation in our industry. It's something that my whole entire career, I think I've heard people talking about it. In addition to, Paul Dunn, Rod Baker, we had Rob Nixon's been talking about it for as long as I can remember as well, and a bunch of people out there. And it's something that a lot of firms are doing, but also a lot of firms aren't doing. It is a big mind shift and a change in process to go from time billing and arrears to fixed fee pricing with your clients. And there's always that concern about how will they take it, what would they feel about it, and what if we miss out on our end. But the reality is that right now is the perfect time for you to start looking at moving to fixed fee if you haven't done it yet. The last 12 months have taught our clients to really respect their cash flow and their budgets. We've come through quite a few good years in Australia where businesses have managed to just chug along. We've had a fairly strong economy. Last year massacred parts of that economy, and a lot of them are jumping back now. But those periods where we went into lockdown and we've had to stop running businesses, people had no cash coming in for the first time ever for some of them in their businesses. So there was this fear put into them that they've not really had before, that I've seen across my client base anyway. And I have varied clients in all industries. So they are now listening to me a lot more when I talk about their cash flow and their budgets, and they're asking those questions. They're also more cost conscious than ever. So they want to know what their costs are going to be over the next 12 months and into the future. And that transparent pricing arrangement with us and our clients is something that they really welcome. When they talk to us now and they say, we need some help with this, or, we're putting together an application for a grant, or we want you to do our annual accounts. We've had to change up what we're doing internally. Can you take over more work? For us to tell them exactly what that's going to cost them, instead of just saying, sure, no worries, and send them a bill at the end of the month with an unknown amount, means that they're confident to engage us. And we're confident to do the work because we're going to get paid because we've got that agreement in place. So really, fixed fee now is a win for both parties and something that we all need to be getting on board with.
Yeah, transparency and certainty, absolutely what it's all about, Beck. Look, before I pass on to the next screen for you, I just wanted to mention to everyone, we are recording today's webinar. We will send you a link so that you don't have to sit there taking notes furiously. We'll certainly share the deck with you. And also, should you have any questions, we will do our best to answer them. But use the Q&A box if you could, as opposed to the chat box, and we'll keep a close eye on that and try to refer back to any questions that are posted there. Back to you, Beck.
Thank you. So it's all good and well for me to sit here and say, go do fixed fees. Actually implementing them in your business is a whole other story. You have to really look at the way that you're currently billing your clients and move to a different model. Some of the things you have to do there as well is not just go through your own steps to determine your pricing and understand your client service matrix. You also need to communicate with your clients as well. And well in advance, your clients will take this on board and are going to be more willing to implement any changes that you go through with them if you start to communicate out to them now. So have those conversations with them, give them a heads up of what you're going to change, so that when you do change your pricing model and you do send them new engagements, they're actually expecting them. So when we're figuring out what to charge, there are a few steps that I went through when I first did this, and I've refined over the years. And I've been using fixed fee now in our business for, I think, that 6 or 7 years. And that's it. We have next to no jobs that we time bill now, unless it's a really large project that we're unsure of. So when we did this, the first thing that we did was list out all the services that we offer across the board to all of our clients. And there are quite a few different places you can get that depending on what systems you use. When we looked at all those services, we then had a look at what our average fees were per that service. So what was the average amount that we would charge for, say, a BAS or a set of accounts or some payroll work. And then when we were looking at the average, we made a decision as directors and partners in the business, what are we willing to accept as our minimum fee based on what we're quite comfortable is the minimum amount of time taken to complete a certain task. What would be the minimum fee that we would be willing to charge? So then we kind of had our minimum fee level, we had our average fee level for a more medium-sized business, and then we set a higher level as well for any larger businesses. And that's how we went about determining our tiered pricing. So I'm going to go through those steps and some of the other processes we went through in a little bit more detail now. So when we're looking at our services, not only should you be bringing out all the services or listing out all the services that you currently have, you also should be looking at your client service matrix to have a look at what services are being used by what clients, because that becomes really important to understand your pricing around these jobs as well, because your different clients and the way that they are structured will help you determine what those mid-range, low and high-end fees are. So your client service matrix is essentially just a list of all of your clients and what services they're currently receiving from your firm. I've got a really brief example on the top of this screen. These are just a couple of the things that we've got, and listing out which clients use what services also lets us know what services we aren't offering some of our clients. And then that becomes a really important piece of information to have in your business, as then there are additional services you can offer those clients, and maybe do some bundling, which Will's going to go into a little bit later, how to offer additional services to your clients. But this is a great way to actually really in front of your face identify which services you have that clients aren't taking up at the moment. So when you're actually creating your client service matrix, if you already are using Practice Ignition, you can use some of the features inside PI to pull out that information. You can drop down the little GIFs going through. It's a bit small and hard to see, but you can in here at the proposal screen actually filter out and bring out what clients are using what services straight out of Practice Ignition. You can also export that data into Excel from here and from the dashboard, which is something that I do all the time as well. So once you've got your client service matrix, one of the next steps that you need to go through is actually categorize out your clients so that you understand what pricing will apply to different clients. So I put together a client categorization tool. This is a small snapshot of the one that we use. And we use identifiers in the client's business to determine whether they're a small, a medium, or a large client. So things like how many bank accounts they have, how many finance leases they have, how many employees they have, or if they have employees at all, do they have fringe benefits tax, what is their structure like? There are all these different items in the client categorization tool. And then we've determined at all these different levels, what makes it a small client, a medium client, or a large client. And then if we've got a client who comes in, a business client who comes in, and we can look at this tool and quickly determine whether they're small, medium, or large. And then once we've determined what our small, medium, and large pricing is, anybody in the business can put together a fixed fee engagement, or at least start to draft it. And that's one of the key things here too. You don't want to make fixed fee billing become a partner problem. It needs to be something that can be drafted and addressed by anybody in your business with some clear guidelines, so that any of your accountants can sit down, use Practice Ignition to pull out some information, use your client categorization tool, and identify where these clients would sit and what pricing model they would be eligible for.
Yeah, Beck, one of the objections I've heard over the years quite regularly is that we're trying to compartmentalize clients almost, and we're trying to put them into a box. So it's, here's the service offering in this package, and we're going to say that this is right for this client. But to your point earlier, I think a really big one is you've got to maintain that degree of flexibility. You've ultimately got a service library of 20, 30 different services that you're offering. You're not going to squeeze all of those into the various offerings that you have. And I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit later as well. But to have those options that you're able to add on so that you can still come up with a very customized and flexible offering for all of your clients. It's not so much about compartmentalizing. It's about a foundation and a starting point, I guess, for the discussion. Is that right?
That's right. And these are very flexible packages we're talking about here. So it's, small, medium, large clients, and then different pricing for every single one of your services. So not every client's going to take every service. And I think that we need to be quite realistic about that as accountants and when we're packaging things. But this allows you to create that customized package without spending hours and hours on it, because you've done the foundation work. And that's what's really key here. You don't want this process, once you've set it up, to take more than a couple of minutes to pull together an engagement.
Sure. And it allows for some nice upsell opportunities as well over time as well, as you bring on additional services. Sorry, back to you.
That's okay. This little video that's being showing on the screen at the moment is actually showing you how you can use Practice Ignition to segment your clients by using tags. So once you've actually determined whether or not they're small, medium, or large clients, you can actually attach that information against the client in Practice Ignition. You can change that as well, but you can create a little tag, which means then you'll be able to filter out and have a look at what categorization are your clients to determine what pricing is appropriate. And then that will stay there, and it's great for reporting purposes as well. So this is an example of the pricing matrix we've touched on quite a few times. As you can see here, now that we've determined what classifies a small, medium, or large client, and then we've got all of our different services, then that's where we would pop in the different fees that we have for different clients, for different services. So we would potentially have a client come in, and we've decided that they're a medium client. And if they want annual accounts, according to this, their pricing would start at $3,500. And we would use that, or anyone in the firm could then create the draft proposal in a couple of minutes, because they have all the information they need to price out a job. And when doing this, and when building out your example pricing matrix, I always suggest to have multiple tiers. Don't just internally have small clients, or this is our starting point, or this is our average point. Make it easier for yourself by having the multiple tiers, so that you can quickly know when you're going to charge either less or more than your standard fees. Again, in Practice Ignition, this tool is like built for fixed fee. It actually is built for fixed fee, and it makes all this process a lot easier for you. So this is your library inside Practice Ignition, and you can pre-fill it with all of your services that we've already looked at, and the prices as well. So it's as simple as someone in your team having that information, cross-referencing it against your client categorization tool, and then in here grabbing the appropriate paragraph and service with the appropriate fee for that sized client.
All right, Will, let me unmute you.
Unmuted.
There we go. Over to you, bundle pricing.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you. So bundle pricing, I think there's a lot of opportunity within moving to fixed price and using Practice Ignition, collecting payments, knowing your cash flow. But bundle pricing for me is one of the biggest opportunities as well, because what we typically do is we charge our compliance. If we're using the time and cost model, we'll do our compliance work. But trying to charge for advisory work, it ends up having to be another conversation each time. With bundled pricing, what we can do is when we can move the compliance work over to fixed price, it's very easy to have that conversation going, well, we're doing your annual accounts. Well, why don't we look at catching up on a quarterly basis to do some coaching for you? You can start structuring that advisory work into your annual engagement, which includes the compliance. And that's a really, really powerful way of increasing your advisory revenue in your practice. And Practice Ignition is a great way to facilitate that, because when you have someone on a time and cost basis and you're moving them into that fixed price type of billing arrangement where we're billing over 12 months, when we move them over to this new way of billing, it's a great time to have that conversation and say, right, well, for the past 6 years, we've only done your annual accounts. We've done your annual accounts and your BAS. Well, moving to this next year, why don't we look at trying to grow your business? How about we catch up every 90 days and we review your results? We put a plan in place for the next 90 days, and then we'll catch up and review again. So rather than charging, let's say $300 per month, we can charge you $500 or $550 a month. And that way you're going to get that coaching, but off that, we're going to be able to grow your business to 20, 25% year on year. So it's a really easy way to structure some advisory revenue in, because as we're seeing, compliance margins can be shrinking because of a lot of outsourcing happening in the industry. So a great way to really keep those average hourly rates high is by bringing that advisory revenue in. It's that work that you can't outsource. It's the stuff that they're really paying you, not just for the data entry and that compliance work, but they're paying you for your skills on how to grow a business. And that's where we find that if you can structure that advisory revenue into those engagements, it's a really great way to increase the overall revenue in your practice, and also add a lot more value to your client base. Cool. So as I've just sort of mentioned, the best way to do that is just include it in the annual engagement. So quarterly coaching is one example. Another example is like monthly management accounts. Any of that stuff that goes over and above that annual accounts, tax return work, and that BAS work, and perhaps payroll. Anything that's sort of outside that compliance, really, really great opportunity to bundle it in. And this is where the new proposal editor that Practice Ignition has just released is really powerful, because what we can do is we can include options. So you might, when you bring them in for the that annual meeting to review their tax returns from the previous year, so hey, next year we're going to bring you onto a fixed fee. So we're going to charge you over 12 months. But when we do that, I'll send you an option. You can go away and have a chat to your business partner. We'll include some coaching in there. And you might want to include maybe 6 monthly coaching, maybe quarterly coaching. That way you can break that out in the engagement. When they accept, they can select the option they want, and that's going to kick off the engagement for them that next year. And the great thing is that'll all get deployed through to Xero Practice Manager. If you are on that, deploy it straight through to XPM, and then your staff know exactly what they're working on for the year ahead. So I just think it's a massive opportunity. If you are going to re-engage them, look at what we can upsell, look at how we can add value to their business. Cool. And I think the last sort of point that I wanted to make was you may be surprised about how many clients may be interested in these extra services. Because if you've had a client for 6-7 years and you brought them on board originally to do their tax returns and their annual accounts, their business could have grown a huge amount over those 5 or 6 years. And now's the perfect time to have that conversation saying, hey, do you want a coach to help you get to that next level? So I think you'll be surprised if you were to have these conversations about bringing clients on a fixed fees, you'll be surprised how many will actually be interested in structuring this coaching in for you.
Well, we're going great for time. So I thought, while we've got you, mate, we refer work to you all the time. Anyone that's using PI and XPM, we think of Link straight away. And I've only ever received glowing feedback from yourself and the team. Would you like to spend a few minutes just telling our audience about Link and the services that you guys provide, particularly for the XPM users that are online with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Link's been around for 10 years, and mainly just helping businesses implement like Workflow Max, Unleashed, all these cloud apps. Vendor's another one. But around 2016, we built our Link Academy, which is our education platform, which helps you implement all these cloud apps through video training, which we supplement through support and also one-to-one meetings. But what we did in sort of 2018, we built Link Reporting, because we're helping people implement the Xero Practice Manager, but we found there's a lot of limitations around the reporting. So once we'd implement, we'd have to drop all these spreadsheets out and give people pivot tables, and that's how they had to run their reporting. So we built Link Reporting, took it to market, and then found out that the biggest limitation in what we'd built was lack of WIP reporting. So what we found that our customers wanted was an opening WIP balance, and then all the movements in a period, and a closing WIP balance. So we went away and we built that, and then that's given us our sort of our foundation logic for our whole software. So you'll find any other app that integrates with XPM, it leans on the Power BI backend. So it's taking the data and displaying it in charts. We do it very differently, where we've got a whole lot of algorithms in the back end of the platform that allows us to clean the data. So when you're getting reports out of Link Reporting, they're very nicely cleaned, and they give you a lot more in-depth information about the performance of the business. So that's Link Reporting. But we've also written a book, which we're going to hear about a little bit later. That basically it's all of our knowledge around best practice using Xero Practice Manager and Practice Ignition, and how we set everything up to have a really smooth, efficient process, and to capture the data in a way that you get beautiful reporting out of Link Reporting. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make Xero Practice Manager the #1 tool to run a practice on. And we do that by using Practice Ignition and Link Reporting. If you use those 3 apps together, you just have the most beautiful solution. But our book basically explains exactly how to put it all together.
Good stuff. Thanks, Will. We're certainly racing through it today. That 45 minutes may end up being closer to 35, but that's probably a good thing for everyone. I've got a few slides I wanted to share with you now, guys, just to share with you some of the things that Practice Ignition do to be able to help you with fixed fees and engaging clients this time of year. So you've heard a fair bit about fixed fees. You've heard a bit now about bundled pricing from Will as well. I'm guessing a number of you are thinking, easier said than done. It's always more challenging to implement. Well, certainly not if you're using a product like Practice Ignition to manage your client engagements, is the truth, and to price your services and to handle your payment collection. So warning, brief product plug coming up, but trust me, I think you're going to like what you'll see. We've been around for a while, and this has been our biggest series of product releases that we've brought out in the last 7 years. So let me share with you just some of the big things really quickly that we've introduced, because I do believe they could really help you in time for end of financial year. So firstly, our new proposal editor, recently released, a brand new proposal editor, and as software developers and not marketers, guess what we called it? We called it our new proposal editor. Genius, right? Really nice name, great marketing. And it's all about putting your client relationships front and center and meeting their needs ultimately. All too often, software developers design software and then they expect users of their software to change the way of doing things to accommodate the software and to be able to actually benefit from the software. That's not the way we try and do things. In fact, NPE is the total opposite. It's about catering for you and whatever your client's needs are and happen to be at any point in time. So what it's doing is it's giving you ultimate flexibility when you structure and bill for your services, allowing you to easily combine fixed fee, hourly billing, all in the one proposal, as you might be able to make out on the example on screen there. There's a mixture there of recurring and one-off. And the best part is that you can completely automate your invoicing and your payments collection from a single signed proposal, which means significantly less admin and hopefully a lot less time chasing debtors. Next feature that we've added that's been getting terrific support out there has been options, and Will touched on this earlier. So with a move to fixed fees, I guess comes an element of trust on both your part, but also on the part of your client, because ultimately what they want to know is that they're getting good value for money. So what better way to let them feel like they've still got some control over what they're paying for your services than by actually offering them 3 differentiated options. And Will touched on the example of being able to perhaps include some coaching or management reporting in one of your different packages. It really is a whole new way of billing. In the past, it was very much do and charge, and now to be able to provide 3 different fixed fee options really changes the game. Lots of studies have been done that when you put options in front of people, where do their eyes naturally go? It's typically to the middle option, and that ends up being the most popular. We see that ourselves with our own subscriptions that we offer at Practice Ignition. So it's some clever bundling, just as Will talked about. You should be able to differentiate your offerings enough and then use options very cleverly to upsell existing clients, hopefully with new services as you bring them on or promote them to your client base. Just like what happened with JobKeeper last year. I know JobKeeper was an additional service that was provided, opportune of course, but certainly another service that was provided. And then being able to add and remove services from your proposal options does show your clients the value of your service offering. And it gives them far greater transparency, which is something all clients will most definitely appreciate. I think our most popular feature in PI is payments and the way that we help you collect payments automatically. I'm guessing that a number of you may have read or seen or heard of the article that appeared in Accountants Daily a few months back for those that subscribe to that trade publication. And it spoke of accountants being one of the 6 industries that were most exposed to debtor risk. And a lot of that was on the back of COVID and the exposure that clients were experiencing to perhaps not being a going concern and not being able to pay their bills. So through Practice Ignition, by automating and your payment collections with an integrated solution, the problem of debtors and debtor chasing really just goes away. You never have to chase another invoice again because we capture your client's payment details up front, and then we automatically collect payment on your behalf on pre-agreed payment terms that they've agreed to on signing your proposal. Not only do we collect the payment, but we also raise the invoice, and we automatically handle the reconciliation of the transaction in your cloud ledger, whether that be Xero, QuickBooks, or whatever you happen to be using. And then there's one really neat feature that we just brought out, because we appreciate that not all clients are going to want to give you their payment details up front. We're realistic, and that is our new review and pay feature. Some clients are going to prefer to pay you on completion of your work, and we wanted to accommodate for that too. So our new review and pay feature allows your clients to pay for your invoices online and to do it securely after they accept your proposal, or when your services are priced on completion, which we realise is very common practice as well. So we have got close to wrapping that up in record time. I'm not sure, we all had Red Bulls for breakfast, I reckon. If you have any questions, post them through. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is pop up another poll in a moment to see how we might be able to help you on some of the topics that have been covered today. So if you wouldn't mind very quickly, and if I can find the right button, poll, I don't want that one. I should be able to get to a second poll somehow. Let me work out how, here we go. Poll 2, launch the poll. And it's an easy one for you. For those, to stop us from bugging those that perhaps have other things to do, but for those that would like to hear from us, if you'd like to be sent a link to a free 14-day trial on Practice Ignition, we'd certainly love to talk to you. If you'd like more information about link reporting and how they might be able to help you with XPM specifically, please tick the second option. And if you'd like more information about Practice Ignition and the new features that I've just touched on, we can also organise for somebody to give you a call. So I'll leave that open for another couple of minutes. Great to see so many people selecting an option. Don't be shy. Promise we won't bombard you with follow-up calls, just the one. I might leave that running just a little bit longer. And in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll go to our final slide, which just talks about some resources, because we like to leave everybody with a takeaway when you attend one of our webinars. We've got 3 here for you. The first is our fixed fee playbook, which was authored by none other than Beck, who you've met today. It's an end-to-end playbook on changing billing models, so you'll find that very useful. And we'll include a link to that in the follow-up email that we send you. We also have a follow-up webinar that we're running on the other side of Easter on XPM reporting with fixed fee agreements, which would be one not to miss. We'll give you a link to register for that as well. And then finally, there's a hell of a piece of work that Will talked about earlier by the guys at Link. They call it, or we call it, their XPM Bible. Everything you need to know about Xero Practice Manager. So if you'd like to get a copy of that, do let us know and we can put you in touch with the guys at Link. Otherwise, on that note, there is a question. Hang on, Michelle, thank you for your question. Can we request an upfront deposit for a service that is using the estimate pricing method in proposals? Beck, would you like to answer that one live?
You should be able to do that if you split the service out into 2 sections, because each service has different billing rules. So you could have a deposit, and then straight after that, you could then have the exact same service with an estimate for the rest. And I've done that particularly on projects if I want to start something off and make sure that we've got, our upfront costs covered.
Okay, cool. Look, one last question from me that I'm guessing some may not be asking, but could well be thinking. If you're going to start to implement fixed fee pricing and you hadn't done so, and you're about to move towards it tomorrow, is it realistic that you can have this done? And what sort of time frame are you sort of working with to handle such change management piece within your practice?
What I would suggest is actually, if you make the decision that you want to do this, even if you want to do it for only certain services, maybe just the annual accounts, because if we're really honest about it as accountants, we know how much we're probably going to charge for these jobs, particularly if we've already done them for these clients in the past. So the move to fixed fee isn't too much of a jump. I would communicate with your clients now. And part of that fixed fee playbook, we've actually given templates and emails of how to start communicating with it. So tell them now, tell them we're going to change and this is how we're going to change it. And tell them now, then just before you send out the new engagements, if you're going to do that in say June or July, send them another email and say, hey, we sent you this email a few months ago. We wanted to remind you we're changing the way we're engaging you this year. It's all going to be upfront, fixed fee, and whether or not you're going to take payment details, explain your terms process in that email. And then when they get the engagement, they're not taken aback by it, or at least you should get a good chunk of people actually reading through and understanding what's going on. It also will minimize the disruption to your business as well, because you won't have to field a question from every single person in the every single client about what is this thing that I've got and is it a scam? Why are you taking my payment details? All these interesting questions that can come up. It's all about communication. It's a change management process for you and your business and you and your clients. The great news is though, that once you do it, it's really easy to replicate. They get used to these new systems, particularly if they like them, really quickly. And our clients now wait and expect the engagements. And if for some reason we forgot to send it or didn't get to it, we get hounded for it because they know we're not starting the work so we get the engagement. So they will follow us up. And that is really nice to have a client follow you up so that you can charge them. I mean, like, when does that ever happen?
Very true. And your
I'm going to just add my 2 cents there, Dave. What I'd say about that is a good way to look at doing this as well is if you have a new client that comes to you wanting services, there's a really good way to dip your toe in. So bring a new client on board with Practice Ignition. So you go set up your templates, set up the integrations, set up your account. You send the first engagement to them in Practice Ignition. Once they accept it, what you do is you get to see the workflows. You get to see what the acceptance email looks like. You get to feel for the first time what it feels like for money to just get dropped into your bank account. It's quite cool. And then from there, you know what that looks like. And then you're not so scared going to all your existing clients and trying to move them over because you've seen how seamless the process was for this new client. So yeah, just one thing I wanted to add is, yeah, just maybe dip your toe in with a new client and then that next financial year go, hey, let's just try to pull them all over or 80% of them over. So yeah, that's, yeah,
and
I think it's a good way to approach it potentially.
You don't feel that you need to do every single client straight away. Like if you need to phase it out, but just start is the key thing that I'd be putting out there. Once you start and move forward, it's the best thing.
Agreed. Change is a journey very much and not a destination. Absolutely, guys. We have got a couple more questions. Sonia's asked how to get hold of those resources. We will send you up a follow-up email today. Sonia, you'll have links to all the various resources and how you're able to get in touch with whoever you choose to get in touch with. So no problem there at all. We've got another question from Diane. How would you handle an existing client who is not willing to change to fixed pricing after numerous discussions and clarity on services already being supplied? You can both have a crack at that one if you like.
I would stop working with them unless they agree to your process. Now, I understand that could be very heavy-handed and it depends on what sort of impact that would be on your business. But I think that realistically, like if it's a smaller client or something that you can move forward with, I would just tell them, well, we're not going to work with you like this. And they will start to find more and more accountants who are out there doing this. So they're going to come into this same situation with other people. It also doesn't make any sense. So when you talk through the logic or explain to them the process why, when we do time billing, if we get rewarded for taking longer, we get rewarded for being inefficient. So it's actually in the client's best interest for us to set a fee. And if that fee is realistic and the kind of work you're doing is repetitive or similar to last year or similar to other years, then there shouldn't be a reason why they don't want to accept it that's a valid reason. So in that instance, it's just somebody being difficult and they're trying to do a bit of a power play. So my approach as much as possible is to not work with them. The only clients that I do work with under that arrangement is if it is a one-off project. If this is a consistent ongoing compliance piece or reoccurring monthly services around advisory or board meetings or whatever we're doing, it's fixed fee. But if it's a project for something I've never done before, fair enough, we might give them a daily rate or something. I think that it's just opening up that conversation a bit more, explaining to them more the benefits for their business. If they're still not on board, move them on to somebody else because they're just, I would imagine they're causing you more grief in other places, not just this place. They just sound difficult already.
Yeah, and all I'd add is, the benefits to them, but also the benefits to you. I think you have a right as a supplier to say that it is better for you, a better model for you. But yeah, well said, Beck. Guys, if there's nothing else, and it looks like the question box has been emptied, I'm going to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us this morning and for taking ended up being the best part of 45 minutes out of your day. Special thanks to both Beck and Will for sharing their wisdom with us, and much appreciated, guys. And on that note, it's a bye for now from us, and hope you'll join us next time. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, guys.